Hello and welcome. My name is Andreas. I'm joined here with co-founder of NodeGraph, my colleague Oskar Grondahl. We're really happy to have you here. Was just wanted to check with you so you hear us okay. Hopefully there's no problems. If so, you can always reach us by the chat. So you will then click on the little arrow up to the right of the corner and you can chat with us, you can post questions, and you can also later on answer the poll that we will have. All right, so let me start. Let me just fire up a little bit of the slides here and do like that. So NodeGraph, who are we? We are a data intelligence company founded about 2017, and we have today roughly 150 customers in over 300 installations over the world in 25 countries, and with the great help of our 50 plus partners worldwide. So we are really happy to have you here, and today we will later on dig into the migration topic of this webinar. So as a company, we really do believe that every company organization have the right to understand their data. Data is a vital asset for any organization as of today, but do you actually know where your data come from? Can you trust your data? Do you know the transition of data and how it's used in the organization? Do you also know how it's shared? These are typical questions that we're trying to answer with our solution. So in everyday life, we are exposed to different people, politicians, scientists, or even colleagues in our company's organizations stating facts based on data. That is a fact. We are not saying we interpret the data that is provided, but we give clues on where data come from and which sources are used and how it's used. This is really what we're doing, and you can see NodeGraph as a glue between the governance of data in an organization and the self-service usage in the BI space of any organization. All right, so with that short introduction, I would like to give the word to Oskar. Before I do that, we will also post a little bit of a poll. We would love you to answer that. As I said, click on the right-hand corner, the arrow there, and you come to a menu where there's the poll to be answered. You can also post your questions there that we will pick up by the end of the session. All right, with that, I hand over to my great colleague, Oskar.
Perfect. Thank you, Andreas, for that introduction. Also, I would like to emphasize, really use the poll function because it's really interesting to understand what kind of challenges the audience have today. So they only gave me 15 minutes to talk about migration. I asked for 1.5 hours, but all right. So of course, I fully understand that the challenges that you have with migration is maybe a bit more complex than I'm able to cover now in a 15-minute session. But I will do my best. I should also let you know that I will focus on a migration where we go from one BI tool to another BI tool. There are, of course, other migrations you can do. You go from one ERP system to another. You change your data warehouse, for instance. But today I will focus on the migration of the BI tool. And feel free to post questions in the chat window, and we will, in the end, I guess we will wrap up everything and
exactly
try to answer them as well.
Absolutely.
So, all right, let's get started. So what we have done on a very high level is that we have identified 7 different steps that you will need to take into consideration when you do a migration. First of all, set the scope. After that, we will do a high-level assessment of our environment. Once that is complete, we start doing the detailed analysis. And I will go in each and every one of these steps and talk a bit more around them as well and elaborate on them. Once we have that done, we have, of course, the actual migration. So a lot of hands-on work that needs to be done. And then we have 3, or at least 2 very important steps at the end, which is the side-by-side analysis with what we had before, the data quality of the migration, but also the decommission of what we have today. If we start off with looking at the time consumed for a migration project, from our point of view, we have again divided our 7 steps into 3 categories: the explorer phase, the actual migration, and the test and quality. And this is just to give you a quick understanding of where the time will be consumed in a project like this. Yeah. And as you can see, a lot of time is being spent in the phase where you're actually understanding, exploring what do we have today. As much as 50% is being spent just to understand, what are the relations we have in our data landscape today? What happens if I remove this data asset? What happens if I change this data asset? So a lot of time and effort is being spent in that phase. Then we have the actual migration, where we're actually moving. It could be the code base. We do the copy paste of data assets and so forth. And the last phase would be the test and quality, making sure that the data we deliver is correct. If we start looking into the explorer phase, first step would be to set the scope. And this is on a very high level. So now we need to identify what are we migrating? Is it everything, or is it just a small portion of a BI solution? Do we have already now any known limitations? Do we know that this BI tool that we have today is very strong in this area? The BI tool we are moving to are maybe not that strong in this area. All right, we already now know that we will have limitations. And also, I think it's very important in this phase to also identify, are we doing a one-to-one move? Meaning, are we expecting to have exactly the same things after we have migrated as we had before? Or are we also trying to do a cleansing of the data at the same time? So once you have this scoop ready for you, it's time for the high-level assessment. And the high-level assessment would be the phase where you trying to understand how much time do we need to do this. And the approach that we suggest is that you try to categorize your existing applications. Let's say you decide to go for 3 different tiers, where we try to tell if we have difficult applications, we have medium applications, and we have easy applications. And based on that, we can estimate, say, for instance, the more difficult applications that will require maybe 80 to 100 hours to migrate. Medium applications, that 40 hours, easy applications, that 20 hours. So that gives us a way to understand how much time we will spend on this migration project.
And we spoke to a potential customer this week that had done one manual assessment for one application that took 12 days, right? So
no, but exactly. I think, and this is, I will also touch base on that later on, but this is a very time-consuming phase. I would say one of the most, this one together with a detailed analysis, that's one of the most time-consuming phases that you have. And I think it's also important when you do the high-level assessment based on how difficult the application are, because we are focused now on the technical level, but also include the business.
Yeah.
What kind of apps is it? What kind of report is it? What is the business actually using it for? Because then you can also understand how important it is to migrate this. Next step, the detailed analysis. And I think this is actually where you would spend the absolutely most time when not having an automated tool doing this. Because now we need to understand all the different dependencies, not only within the BI tools, but also the dependencies you have between different systems, right? Because you don't want to break anything. But you also need to identify down on the code level, what kind of calculations do we do? Because in some BI tools, certain calculations are very fast, very easy to do. But when moving to a different BI tool, you need to maybe totally rethink how you've done the logic, because that's just not viable in that product. So here you would spend for sure most of your time understanding what you have in the application. And if we look then at if we look at the opportunities that we have now, because I think we start talking about you can do one-to-one migration, but you can also do the cleansing while doing this. But I think also now, since you need to know your environment in such detail, this is a good opportunity for you to optimize, right? Do we have redundant KPIs? Do we have redundant reports? Can we remove data? Maybe, there's a lot of old data lying around that you could probably just remove. And these are things that you will, for sure, see when you do a migration project. So it's a very good opportunity for that. When it comes to challenges then, in the Explorer phase, understand the full data landscape, right? Because if you're about to do a migration project and you start doing this manually, be prepared to spend a lot of time on it. Because you will have to enter so many different scripts, you will have to identify so many different data containers. So that's the biggest challenges. And also understanding what data is not being used. That's critical because we are creating a lot of data out there that we never use. So be aware of that. All right, so now it's time. We have the entire data landscape mapped out. We know all the different hurdles that we have. So it's time for the actual migration. So first thing, separate from day-to-day team. I've seen so many times where you try to do migration right next to the normal BI development. The problem that happens is that typically the organization are not that interested in changing BI tool from the start. They just want to have their reports, they want to have updates to their existing reports, and their understanding for have to wait to get something delivered just because you are doing a migration project, probably driven from someone else. It's not so that's step one, separate it from your day-to-day business. Because we cannot afford not delivering insights for a long period of time. Next thing, you will never hit a moving target. And again, I think now when we are working in the visualization tool, in the reporting that are actually consumed by the end users, it's very important that we need to deliver value all the time. I mean, I think it's a common mistake thinking that the BI team is the center of everything, right? The business is the center of everything when it comes to making decisions. Meaning that it can happen that even though we know that best practice is not to do an architect like this, but it will help us deliver on time and faster, then maybe we have to just be okay with that. So it's not necessary that the best practice from your school book is what you should do in every case, but because we have to deliver. And I think that goes in with what I said here. 95% is good enough. And of course, the data that we deliver needs to be 100% correct. That's not what I'm saying. 95% of the data quality, is not enough. But when it comes to, because also, the guys listening to this webinar, they already know that if you ask the business, they can always change something. Can we have a different color on that? Or maybe I would like to have this bar chart a bit different. But in the migration project, you don't have that luxury. So if you identify something like that, just put it on the backlog. Deliver numbers that are 100% correct. If the end user would like to change colors and enhance the reports, that's something different. That's not within this project. Put it on the backlog. You can come back and do that later on. Opportunities. Again, now we're starting redoing the code. We can update weaknesses in the code, remove unused code. Maybe it's time to look, see if we can update the comments that we have in the code. The business glossary, which I think is a bit overlooked out there now. I think something you should really start working with. And I think the challenges here is now we're actually, trying to do maybe we are coming from a tableau environment, trying to do that in qlik, and we realize, all right, we don't have that functionality in qlik, but how should we approach that? Can we together with the business actually go to the business and, okay, so what are the business decisions we need to be able to do? based on that. So we need to take that into consideration, that not all functionality will be able in the new system, which can also be a good thing.
Yeah,
right.
Good discussion.
The last phase that we are looking at is the test and quality. And first of all, good news. For once, we actually have a really good specification of what we are supposed to deliver, because we have something today. Yeah. So that's really good. One thing that I would really like to emphasize, though, is once you have delivered the report, the numbers can match today, but not tomorrow. This is a very common mistake that I see, is that you focus a lot of trying to match that number in your old system. And once you have that sales number in Q4, which is exactly the same as in your old report, you're good. You just leave it, and then you publish the report, say, hey, we migrate this report, start using this. And then a week from now, hey, the number is off. Yeah, because we have a lot of different things going on in the transformation step in the background, meaning that there could be an incremental load that we didn't take into consideration and so forth. So you have to set up a test protocol, meaning that you test these numbers over a longer period of time as well. And the last part would be the decommission. So now we have the new BI tool up and running. Everybody's happy. Of course, the business is a bit grumpy because they don't have the old reports anymore. But still, we have delivered what we were supposed to deliver. And now it's time for decommission. And I think the best thing to do here, just pull the plug. Pull the plug, but don't delete. Right. That would be the typical approach.
Keep for a while.
Yes, turn it off and then keep it for a while, so you at least have the possibility to go back and revisit what we have done and so. But otherwise, just do it, because otherwise you can run multiple environments for so long, and for the longer period of time you have dual environments. Yeah. You open up for problems, right?
Correct.
And when we have opportunities and challenges in this last phase, I would say this is a very good opportunity, and I think especially if you look historically in the visualization tool, we haven't really had the process for testing data, and I really encourage people to start questioning that. Why are we having so many data tests, maybe in the data warehouse side, but not in the visualization tool?
Right.
So take this opportunity to start adding test cases. Where do we have our weak spots? Set up a test protocols for that. And the challenge as well, as I mentioned before, it's not enough that the number match today. It needs to be the same over a longer period of time, because typical data that you have in the visualization tool is a bit more difficult than just saying that today it's correct, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct tomorrow. All right, good. It's very high speed here, and I totally understand that. And I would like just to add as well. I mean, if you have any questions around migration, feel free to contact us at NodeGraph.
Absolutely.
And this is a very specific case, but we are always here and are more than happy to help you guys to discuss how to best approach the migration part. We promised to look into where can we optimize time and cost. So out of these 7 areas, we have identified 4 different areas where we believe you can save a lot of time and cost. That's the high-level assessment, the detailed analysis, but also in the testing phase. Sorry, I'm just going to go back to this slide, and this is something that I will show in the demo as well, right, later on. So we will come back to this, but these are the 4 steps where we can save the most time and costs also. Are there any tools out there that can help us? I would say that for specific BI tools, there are different tools and possibilities. We, of course, we have we support the Power BI, Tableau, qlik, Snowflake, and Microsoft as well. And if we look at those different spaces, most of them have some sort of audit log or logs based on the sessions. For instance, the qlik governance dashboard You have the audit log for Power BI, where you have information. You have the same administrative view in Tableau, where you have a lot of information. I think this data, you can, I think I actually have an example here in my next slide. Yeah, I have. So this kind of data you can easily get from any tool that you have, and it's based on the number of users that you have. It's based on how frequently the applications are being used and things like that. And this data is very good to have in combination with your data landscape picture, because this gives you insight to which applications are actually being used.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's important is because it's not always the one that's screaming the highest that needs the application the most.
Right.
So use data, make data-driven decisions when migrating your BI solution. All right. So that was, again, a very quick introduction to the migration of your BI tools. Now we're going to look hands-on how NodeGraph can automate a couple of these steps for you. So I will start sharing my screen here for you guys. All right. So now we're in the landing page of NodeGraph. I just want to emphasize again here, everything you see in NodeGraph as being automatically pulled out from your BI system and visualized like this. So there's no manual work needed in NodeGraph, and that's really the heart of NodeGraph, automation. Right, that's the key. But if we are about to migrate, let's say now we're going to start looking at a qlik environment. So again, this is a very easy demo example, but I think this highlights still, even though it's very simple, it highlights the complexity of a BI solution. And the way we would really attack this, because we talk where we can save a lot of time is in the Explorer phase, right? When we do the high-level assessment, when we do the detailed analysis, that's when you need a tool like this. And this is where you can save tremendous amount of time to understanding this. And that's what you described this customer spending 12 days only to understanding one application. And basically 12 days can go from 12 days to a hide unrelated node like this. Yeah, that's really how we compare when it comes to do manual work or having a tool to support you. And the way you would approach a migration using our platform would be that, first of all, we need to identify what are we migrating based on the earlier presentation that I talked about. Now we need to understand, okay, what dependencies do we have? What kind of impact will it make? So let's say, for instance, here that we would like to, we start based on projects. So we start, our sales department will go first. So first of all, products, we don't need to do anything about right now. So we just select our sales application. Instantly, we can see where the data is coming from. But it can also be, in this case, that we only would like to move things from one database, say orders. So now we can do a hide unrelated node from this side. And now we can instantly get a view of, okay, so this is what we need to migrate. Right? And now we have two different approaches to this. You can continue the analysis in NodeGraph, with the classic Explore field and see exactly what you need to move. One other way that I've seen actually very recently is that since you can, in the documentation module in NodeGraph, you can tailor-made a template for the documentation, meaning that you can actually create using the documentation generation. You can automatically create a to-do list for what you need to migrate. Cool. So if you go into the template of your documentation, remove everything that's not needed for the migration, and keep what you need, and have that as a to-do list. Right. For what to migrate, if you prefer to do it that way. It could be also that you have a wider, like a bigger project group for doing this migration project, and you can have that as a to-do list for them as well. then we have, so that's the Explorer phase, right? We can use NodeGraph to visualize what we need to migrate. We can use the Field Explorer to understand the logic that we need to change. We can use the automated documentation to create a template for a to-do list. But we can also, once we have done the migration, we can also use NodeGraph to compare one-to-one. How have we actually succeeded in the migration? So now we have an example here where we have moved from qlik sense into tableau. So here we can actually view the expression in the qlik application, follow that data through the entire ETL all the way back to our database, but we can also follow it out again, seeing that we use exactly the same data in our Tableau environment for this KPI. And one other really interesting thing that I've seen customers do now is that they use this data in NodeGraph, utilizing the APIs, pull that into a visualization tool, and based on that, they get a very quick overview if they have been successful in delivering one-to-one migration. So I can really emphasize that. I mean, if you don't find it out of the box in NodeGraph, utilize the APIs. Very simple to work with. All right. So again, that was a very quick introduction to migration. Should we see if we have any questions? Yeah, maybe we can. Let's see if I can.
Yes. So there's a question. Someone wants to migrate from UB Analytics to qlik sense. Is the analytics available for Oracle EBS? Is the question.
Yeah. So for out of the box, no. What you would do in a case like this, because we have that before from other tools, is that you use the import function that we have. So typically there is an export function, hopefully on a feed level, which we provide. If not, we can work with it. But pull it in using the import function and then validate with the qlik sense.
All right. Another question. Any plans on reading from SAP Business Objects?
Very good question. I think we try to be very open with the roadmap that we have, and it's very aggressive. It's very much driven from the partner network. That's how we do it. I know that business objects is a topic that we discuss a lot. So I'm happy to discuss it further in regards to our roadmap as well.
Yeah, it's really a priority on the roadmap, but also customer cases driving our decisions.
Exactly. That's
all right. Third, maybe last question. I think you touched on it, but can NodeGraph only be used for migration projects? I think not, right? So we can.
No, I mean that's. I think it's a very good use case, migration. Yeah. But what happens after the migration? How do we make sure that we follow the deployment framework that we have? Are we up to date with everything? So no, I think NodeGraph should be seen as a platform that you put on top of your data,
helping governance and other projects.
Exactly.
All right. Another question popped up. How to apply this on Snowflake?
Yeah, that's a very good question actually. Since we just released our preview function of Snowflake, so now Snowflake is available as well. Depending on how you have done the ETL in Snowflake, there's different ways of approaching it. But the Snowflake as a database, we now support. So that's really
good. So come back to us. We are happy to engage on anything around Snowflake. Yeah. All right. I think we are done. Time is up, and I just wanted to thank you very much for spending the time with us. Thank you, Oskar. And again, feel free to engage with us. You will have send out after the mail, so you have all the contact details. Any questions to us, we're here to help you.
Yeah,
all right?
For sure.
Thank you very much.
Take care out there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.